1. So this happened a couple of months ago. My girlfriend decided to come live with me for the summer. We didn't think it was a good idea to move in together because we'd only been dating a short while, so I started helping her look for a place on Craigslist. We found a huge 3-bedroom home that she would be sharing with 2 other roommates, was dog-friendly, and within her budget. I found the room about 11 o'clock on a Sunday night, and I texted the guy, supposedly named Jay. I told him we were interested and wanted to have a look around the place. My girlfriend was leaving back to our hometown the next day at noonish because she had been visiting me at college. He texted back crazy fast, saying that he was available the next day around 10. Perfect, right? So I text back saying that would work. He texted back saying to let him know tomorrow when we were going to be headed over. I thought nothing of it and went to bed. The next day I texted him around 9:30 a.m. and said we would head out in about 10 minutes because it was a 20-minute drive. He told me to text him when I was 10 minutes away. Again, I thought it was odd, but shrugged it off. Why so many instructions? Anyways, we start driving out there and I'm immediately getting a bad feeling. This house was out in the middle of nowhere. I texted 3 of my friends in a group message and sent them my location should anything happen, and said to call the police in an hour if I didn't respond. Don't ask why I kept going. I know I'm an idiot. Anyways, my GPS takes me to some mailbox on the side of the road. I text Jay and tell him we don't know where the house is. We saw a small black car pulled off to the side of the road, and it was Jay, waiting to have us follow him to the house. We go down this long dirt road with fields of grass surrounding us. My girlfriend and I were so blinded by the fact that her dog would love to run around that I think we ignored the red flag. We pull up to the house and Jay greets us. Y'all, this man was wearing skinny jeans and they were very weird. They were crinkled on the bottom sides of his legs and also had zippers there too. He was wearing old beat-up slides with no socks and a burnt orange Nike t-shirt with the Nike logo acrylic peeled off. He had to have been in his late 20s, early 30s. Still, I ignored my instinct, which was to run. He seemed nice enough, so we follow him inside. On the ad, he posted a picture of the living room, all furnished and pretty cute. We go inside and there is 0 furniture. The house is all dusty like no one has lived there in years. We go upstairs and he shows us my girlfriend's potential room. There was a stained queen mattress propped up against the wall, and a baby walker in the room, that was it. He never explained on why that stuff was in there. We go downstairs and he won't open one room because he didn't want to invade the tenant's privacy. Yeah, right. Okay, now the really creepy stuff. So he shows us the kitchen and it's just so outdated, it looks like something straight off a horror film. Old wallpaper, wooden appliances, old spice racks, etc. But we ignored that because we're desperate for a place for her. He shows us the back porch and it is overrun with weeds. I look to my left and see baby toys, diapers, a blonde wig, high chair, laundry baskets, old dingy stained clothes strewn about, etc. And immediately I am like, oh no no no. Then he starts showing us this back house he owns and rents out to someone, but says we are not allowed into it and to stay away from it. It was literally about 40 yards away from the main house, but you don't have to tell me twice. So we go to the front yard and sit down on these ugly wooden tables that Jay had supposedly made himself. There were cinder blocks on the ground, and he stuck long strips of PVC pipe up high into the air and connected Christmas lights to each other. He said he didn't mind us having dinner parties out there. The fence had a huge hole in it, and I asked if he would fix it for our dog, and he obliged. Still, why was there such a huge lone hole? There were tools and supplies scattered all in the yard, like a huge shovel and wooden frames. We asked Jay what it is, and he seemed to be trying to make up a lie, which was that he was building something. He quickly said he'd leave his hammock here so we could use it when we want. Anyways, he starts telling us that he drops by every so often when he's in town, and that he owns a bunch of other property all over the world. He tells us he is a Harvard grad who owns a limousine company. He told us that he sent the lease over that night, wanted a $600 deposit, and that he was going to leave New York the next morning to go take care of some business, and needed it turned in ASAP. I acted like everything was totally okay, and that we were really interested in the place. He finally lets us leave, and I get the F out of there so fast. My girlfriend was in love with the place, and I was like, no, you are not staying there. We decided to go eat, and I still just have a weird feeling, so I suggest that we look Jay up on social media. I start looking for him on everything, Facebook, Twitter, Insta, LinkedIn, etc. And this dude is nowhere to be found. I tell my girlfriend to text him and ask if he has any social media. She does, and he says no, but that his name would be on the lease when he sent it. However, he kept misspelling things and saying the same thing over and over. At this point I knew it was a scam. So we're sitting there looking at the ad, and there's a YouTube link, so we click on it, and it's showing a virtual tour of the room. However, the name of the person that uploaded it was definitely not Jay. So I tell my girlfriend to ask who this was, and for his last name, and he never texts back. Later that night around 10 PM, I tell her to ask if he was going to send the lease. He did around 11, and my girlfriend forwards it to me, and it was so obvious that this dude was a liar. On the name part of the lease, it had my girlfriend's first name only, and for the landlord's space, all it said was J. So we decide it's not legit, and don't answer. The next few days go by, and Jay texts her and is pissed she hasn't turned in the lease. She tells him we found a different place, and he replies with, good, because I'm already going with someone else, they sent me their deposit, bitch. Needless to say, we never tried contacting Jay after that. So Jay, I don't know if you are a scammer or what you were planning by having my girlfriend move in, or even what you were hiding in that house. But for the love of all things good, let's please never meet again. 2. In the summer of 2015, I worked at a university in a small southern town. I lived a few miles away from campus in a 2-bedroom house with a roommate, and my schedule was pretty rigid. Same routine every day. I went to class in the morning, work in the afternoon, and got home around 9 PM. One Thursday night, I arrived home at the usual time, and noticed that there was an old pickup truck idling at the yield sign across the street from my house. I didn't know the make or model, but it was beat up. Peeling paint, rust, dents. It looked really out of place in our neighborhood. Most people there drove nice modern cars, so this thing stuck out like a sore thumb. The streets were deserted. It clearly wasn't waiting for other cars to pass. I thought maybe the driver was just texting or something. But since my roommate wasn't home yet, I didn't want to leave the safety of my own vehicle. I'm a petite woman who doesn't carry pepper spray anymore, so I try to be aware of my surroundings. I pulled into my driveway and just sat there, staring at the truck, and waiting for it to leave. Eventually it did. It pulled away slowly and made its way out of the neighborhood toward the main road. When it was out of sight, I went inside, locked the door behind me, and made myself some dinner. By 11 PM, my roommate still hadn't come home, and I was folding laundry and listening to podcasts in my bedroom. I'd forgotten all about the truck. Suddenly, the lights went out. That spooked me, because normally our power didn't shut off unless it was bad weather. That night was clear as a bell, so I immediately called my roommate and asked where he was. He told me he was already on his way home and would be there in about 5 minutes. Relieved, I just told him to step on it and hung up. No reason to freak out about a power outage, right? He'd be there soon enough, and then we could figure it out together. I walked into the living room to wait for him. Our front door had a little diamond-shaped window in it, which I always hated. I stood on my tiptoes and looked out to see if our neighbor's power was out as well. I was surprised to see that it wasn't. Even the streetlight near our front yard was still on. Weird. Had I somehow blown a fuse? Just as I considered making a trip to the basement to reset the breakers, I received a text message from my mom. I don't remember what it was about, but it only took me a few seconds to answer it. After I did, I looked out the window again. To my utter shock and surprise, there was a man standing under the streetlight. He hadn't been there before, and I instantly got a bad feeling. He was middle-aged and about 6 feet tall, with a pot belly and little round glasses. Unkempt hair, old sneakers, his white t-shirt and blue jeans were filthy. He looked like he'd been working on a car or something. He was mechanic dirty, you know? And he had this awful, smug expression on his face. I had never seen him before, still in shock at actually seeing someone out there. I didn't move. Luckily, he couldn't see me because the inside of my house was pitch dark. But to my absolute horror, he was headed straight for me. Not walking quickly or with purpose, just kind of casually shuffling toward the house. If someone else were to pass by, they probably wouldn't realize what he was up to. He even glanced around a few times as if making sure nobody else was watching. Inch by inch, he made his way into the yard. The guy was coming to get me, I was sure of it. I started to shake. I think it's worth mentioning that my dog is very people-oriented, and usually goes bananas when he hears someone outside. This time he was silent. He had no idea there was a man approaching, even though I was staring at him through the window. When the man was about halfway to the porch, my roommate's car finally rounded the bend and turned onto our street. As soon as those headlights lit him up, the man turned to look and recognized the approaching vehicle. My roommate and I both saw his face. He recognized that car. In his haste to get away, he nearly stepped in front of it and got run over. My roommate swerved into the driveway, scrambled out, and charged into the house. He didn't even speak to me. He just grabbed the axe out of our utility closet and went back outside to confront the man. But the man was gone. We called the police and the power company, and they both sent someone to check things out. The police didn't find anything. The repairman reset the box on the pole near our house. Apparently the switch had flipped, which is why our house, and our house only, was without electricity. I asked the repairman if there was any way that a person could have been responsible for that, but he didn't give me a straight answer. The following day we went on a camping trip that lasted all weekend. If the man came back, we never knew, and after that I refused to be home alone. If my roommate wasn't around when I got off work, I killed time at a local bar until he got back. We both moved away a year later. I never saw the man or the truck again, but sometimes I wonder how long he had been watching our house, and what might have happened if my roommate hadn't been on his way home that night. 3. So, a small bit of background. I'm from a small rural town set in the East Midlands of the UK, and everything is quite spread out. My mom lived in a small street on the edge of town, tucked into the corner, with very little lighting from streetlights at the time. The council turned some off in certain areas to save money. This street was a dead end, and shaped like a T, with my mom living at the dead end at the top on the left. I'm also about 5'2" and weighed about 105 pounds at the time. The incident happened on Christmas Eve in 2011, so I was only 21. I was visiting home from my university up north for Christmas, and had gone out with some friends from the area for a catch-up, and to celebrate the season. It had gotten late, and I needed to catch a taxi to get home. I didn't want to call my mom at 1 a.m. Christmas morning to come and pick me up, and it was too far to walk. My friends had all headed home, as they lived much closer to the town centre. Unfortunately, I hadn't realized that the taxis were all charging double fares because it was Christmas, and it only saved £10, the usual amount it would cost me to get back, rather than the £20 it was going to cost me that night. I didn't have my bank card, silly, I know, and thought that I was going to have to wake my mom up after all, when one driver pointed out that it was Christmas, so he would do it for the £10. He leant over and opened the passenger door, and I climbed in. Now in the UK, black Hackney cabs don't really take passengers in the front seat. You're meant to sit in the back area normally. I was drunk and honestly just grateful for the ride, and didn't think anything of it. I gave him the street name and we set off. He seemed very friendly, asking how my night had been, what my Christmas plans were, just regular chatter. At some point I mentioned that I was visiting from university, and he asked what I was studying, to which I replied, motorsport engineering. At this point he became fascinated with me and what I was studying. He kept making comments about how he would never have imagined a girl as young and beautiful as me would be interested in cars, how amazing that was, that he thought it was incredible, etc., etc. I thought it was odd. But it had some weird reactions when people found out what I did before. I apparently don't look like an engineer, whatever that looks like, so I just smiled and nodded to keep things friendly, as we were nearly at my street. Then things got a bit weirder. We pulled up in my street, a few doors down from my house, and of course, it was super dark. I'm drunk, tired, and a bit creeped out by his obsession with me and what I study at this point. He's still going on about how he would never have believed it, I was too pretty for that, he would love to see me working on cars, etc. So I just try to give him the money and get out, but he won't take it. Just ignores my hand waving the money around and keeps talking. He had also leaned a lot closer at this point. I tried the door handle to let myself out, but the locks were engaged, and couldn't find any way of unlocking it in the dark. He completely ignored my attempts to open the door, and just kept talking at me. I can't remember everything he said anymore, mostly he carried on the same way he had been, but with more references to watching me bend over. I was really freaked out by this point, and I tried to say that I needed to go several times, but he just kept ignoring me, and saying he loved how incredible I was. He didn't even know me. We'd been sat in the dark at the end of my street for about half an hour at that point, with his engine and lights off. There was no way anyone from the houses would have been able to tell there was anyone in the car if they had looked out of the windows. Then I saw a light turn on in my next-door neighbor's window up the street from us, and I blurted out, "Oh, that must be my mum waiting up for me. I better head in before she calls and starts to worry." The look on his face was genuinely terrifying. He looked like a combination of angry, disappointed, and also contemplative, like he was trying to decide something. I waved my money at him again and pulled on the door handle, and he popped the locks and let me out. I ran all the way to my front door and let myself in before locking everything behind me and picking out the curtains. He didn't drive away for another few minutes, and I remember being aware that he saw me go into my house, and also must have known that I lied about the light being my mum. It wasn't even my house. I never saw him again and went back to uni 4 days later. I told my mum what happened, and she insisted on driving me around for the rest of my stay. To this day I still get nervous taking taxis, and always message someone when I have to use one, so that they know where I am and when to expect me. So creepy taxi driver, let's not meet. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 3 True Scary Stories, episode 342. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. I've been thinking about the channel and where it's going, and I'm thinking of making some revisions to the channel. Not this year necessarily, there's other things I want to do this year, and try and get finished if I can. But I'm thinking maybe starting next year I'm going to take certain series on the channel. The ones that are doing poorer, like for example the glitch videos and the paranormal videos, they're not getting as many views as they used to. And I might, and I stress might, I haven't made any solid decisions yet. I'm open to feedback to see what you think. I might start doing them, not getting rid of them, certainly not doing that, but I might start doing them seasonally. So we might have them like for 3 months, then they'll go on hiatus for a little while, and we'll have something else, and the something else will go on hiatus, and then we'll bring one of the other series back, and we'll see how they do. But I'm not certain. Like I say, it's just I'm mulling ideas over, and I'm just kind of putting them out there to see what people think of them. I do have some ideas for new series. There's mother-in-law stories, that sort of thing, military stories, mother-in-law's in the military. Who knows where it might go? But like I say, I'm always looking for new things to try, so it might be worth doing that. We'll see what happens. Okay, and I think I'm going to head off before people start making noise. It's very early in the morning here, and I'm sure the neighbours and whatnot will be getting up to start banging about and farting and making breakfast as they head on to work. Oh, interesting side note before I go. I had it's made me chuckle, actually. I had someone leave a comment on a video the other day that I had about my bad fake Scottish accent, and that I should stop doing it and just stick to my regular American one. I mean, I guess it's a compliment that they think the American one sounds convincing, but Come on now. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.